Welcome to the first episode of Bringing the World to Your Table. My name is Abby Gray, and I'm a local chef here in Norwell, and I partnered with my good friend Megan to form a travel company.
And I'm Megan, and I'm a lawyer, and together Abby and I have Travel with Abby and Megan. It grew out of Abby's culinary adventures and my cultural curiosities. Together we lead groups and boutique tours to all over the world. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Umbria.
Umbria in Italy is one of our favorite destinations. We take small groups, 6 to 8 people, to this fabulous region, which is a little bit north of Rome. It's about 40 miles north of Rome. And typically you go there for the slow food. It's a wine region. It is an architectural site.
Yeah.
There's architectural sites, but there's tons of Duomos as well, which people go to study from all over the world. The food scene is incredible.
Yes. And as we take you along on our journey today, we're going to learn a couple things about the region too. We have some mystery questions and some travel tips. So we're looking forward to bringing you along on this adventure. You're going to talk about an ingredient, right? Do we have an ingredient?
I am going to talk about an ingredient. Throughout the show, we're going to do a couple recipes, and we are going to find out what grain has ancient Roman ties and was also used as money.
Yeah, and we're going to learn a little bit about a medieval hill town that has a labyrinth of secret caves and tunnels underneath its...
That I have even been to.
Yes. Yes.
So we usually start with how do you get there?
Yeah.
We think the easiest way to get there is to fly.
Right. You can always take a boat, but...
You can. It's going to really cut into your trip.
Right, exactly.
You land in Rome around 8 a.m., and then we find it's easiest to take a train to the region. We typically go into Terni, which is an easy train stop from the Rome airport, Fiumicino. And then if you want to rent a car, you can. I do suggest that you rent a car once you get to Terni because the roads are really easy to navigate. You're driving on the right-hand side of the road like you do here.
Yes.
And you want a car going into all these little hill towns. Some towns have parking lots at the bottom of the base, and then you take the vernacular up.
Yeah, so that would be like Orvieto.
Yep.
So you can take the funicular that goes up the hillside. You can park for free at the bottom, and then you can either climb the steps, climb the hillside, or you can take the funicular up, and then you're deposited into this beautiful medieval, essentially kind of walled city, and it has an amazing Duomo or cathedral that's in like a Gothic style. And there's also something really unique about Orvieto that Abby's had a chance to explore.
Yeah, the caves. So, one thing about the Duomo is on the outside, everybody wants to go. So when you're in Italy, you tend to go see a Duomo, which is a church, in almost every town. One of the things is do bring, if you go and you're not with us, we always have a scarf because you have to cover your shoulders in the summer. They do request that. They typically don't charge to go into them, but they do want you to adhere to the old-fashioned rules regarding covering your shoulders. Anyways, the outside of that Duomo is what is
it's
so
Gothic,
unique, more in Gothic style.
Yep.
More than some of the others. A lot of the other churches that we'll talk about, and we'd also take you on tour, it's all about the frescoes inside and the artwork, and all the churches tell a story.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about the Orvieto church is that during the Baroque period, the townspeople kind of came in and said, we want to clear everything out and make it really just a sparse place for worship. So out of, I think, a lot of the cathedrals you'll go into in Italy, this one is going to be less statues, less frescoes, less decorative.
Orvieto has a lot of things. You could maybe even just spend your entire vacation there because between the chefs we know and the cooking classes we do, the olive oil tours and the folks we know at Bartholomew, which is a beautiful olive oil that we have here on set, and the caves. So when we took the kids in 2012, we went to the caves, and I didn't really think I was going to go down them because it's not really my thing.
Right.
But it was amazing. So you start up, and there is a winding staircase all the way down to the bottom. And I think it's something like 374 stairs down.
To get down,
Yeah. And you can look... You know, we don't like heights.
Right.
Yeah. So, but you can see everything as you're going down.
And that was like an underground city, right?
It's an underground city.
I mean, they have an olive press. They have a place where they would actually grow pigeons, a pigeon roost.
You can actually lose your child in this cave,
Yeah.
which I did.
We don't recommend it, though.
No. We found her again, but it was
A little touch and go.
we told her we were playing a game.
Yeah.
But, so that's really an interesting aspect to the city.
Right.
And then you come up. The other thing that is very well known in Orvieto are the olive orchards are right outside the city, and then they make these beautiful olive wood cutting boards.
Yeah.
I know we have one that we bought, which is great because they cut the baguettes and they have baguettes too, but they call it ciabatta, and they cut the ciabatta and the crumbs fall into the well. And so they make beautiful things. They make the salt jars that we have when we're cooking. They make spoons. And olive wood's a beautiful wood to work with and to cook with. And you just need a little bit of mineral oil to keep it fresh. So one of our favorite places is Dorota.
Yes, which is known for where a lot of the Italian pottery comes from. Kind of the quintessential, what you picture as the quintessential Italian pottery design and pieces.
We should say, because it depends on where you come from in Umbria, that someone says pottery and some say ceramics. And it's a big deal to the Italians, depending on where you are in the region.
Yes.
Yes. It's just funny.
Yeah. So now Dorota is a town that really the height of its ceramic production was in the 15th and 16th centuries.
Yes.
And if you go there today, you can still find those pottery shards and different pieces, artifacts, I should say.
So we go to this one house called GP Dorota, and when I had at my store in Boston, I would go, when I went to Italy, I would come back and I bring the olive bowls and the Christmas ornaments. We found the store by accident. What had happened is I gotten a gift from for our wedding, and I loved it. It was beautiful, and they have a couple big vendors in New York.
Yes.
And so I sought this ceramic house out, and I went in. It was very quiet. It was a super hot day, but it is filled with gorgeous tables, platters, bowls, everything.
Yeah.
And I got in that when I got married, and then we were there in 2012, and I walked in and I said, "Oh, this must be it. This is beautiful."
Yeah.
And I picked out a piece, which you'll see in our collection behind us. We have some of the pieces from GP. And I realized the piece I picked was signed by the same artist as the bowl I'd gotten 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
We should probably leave Dorota now and go over to Assisi.
I think so.
Yeah.
Another really well-known and popular place to visit, I think, in the Umbrian region. A lot of people are familiar with St. Francis of Assisi and the beautiful cathedral that's in that town. Again, it's another medieval hill town that's set into the hillside. Good walking shoes.
If you're not paying attention, you can drive down a wrong way, which I did in a Fiat stick shift, and to the right was a staircase, and to the left was a pedestrian walkway. So I just backed myself right back up by the church. So then after Assisi, we sometimes drive over the mountains to Spoleto.
Right, and if we're haven't had quite enough to satiate us for the day, then we have a quick stop at the castle at the very top of the hill in Spoleto.
Oh, there's a very special restaurant and bar, but it's mostly a restaurant called I believe it's called the Castle, and it's in Spoleto. And on the very top of the restaurant, there's an open air fire, and that's where all the meat's cooked.
Yes.
So what you do is you sit down at this. We were there.
Yeah.
How we got there is interesting. We typically, and we've decided, we will have a driver from now on for various activities because this is a harrowing trip. And we had our clients again in a stick
little
shift.
tip is, oftentimes when you rent a car over there, they typically offer standard vehicles. So very few automatic vehicles are available to rent,
and
or
you'll
to
pay
drive.
a surcharge for it.
Right.
But I would suggest, if you're nervous or you're driving clients around in a Fiat, that you probably should rent an automatic.
Yes.
But it was very funny. So we come through the hills of Assisi. We're going up to the castle for dinner, and I panic because there's a car coming down. I'm driving, and I'm stuck on a really uphill,
Sharp incline.
like you're going to fall back and fall off the edge of the earth. But luckily, the client and Megan
Yes,
got
we were
me
able to
through
talk her
that.
through use of the clutch and the handbrake.
Yeah, the
for the
clutch and
win.
handbrake. And then we went into this castle,
Right.
and there's tons of different rooms.
Yeah.
Because it was a castle.
Yep.
And the chef, like I said, cooks on the open fire.
Right. So it's very traditional for this region.
Yep.
And it's
A lot of meat.
a lot of meats, a lot of grilled meats that are cooked on this open fire. So not necessarily a lot of pastas and sauces.
Well, they do. They do like the butternut squash. They do the pastas. So,
but the main focus of the restaurant, I would say, is the meats.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so much food.
Right. So much food.
Also, the other things of that region are, well, in Umbria in general, are chickpeas.
Yep.
Our secret ingredient, which we're going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah.
But chickpeas, beans.
Yep. Lentils.
Lentils are very big. And then arborio rice. So we have the different grains here on our tray because arborio rice is mostly used in risotto. Okay, or risotto, depends, tomato. And then lentils from Umbria are taken very seriously. They're packaged beautifully, as you can see. They're used for lots of different things. They do lentil soup, they do lentil and sausage, they pair lentils with pasta sometimes. Lentils are big.
Yeah.
And then
Are these the chickpeas here?
those are the chickpeas. So those are from our day in Montefalco.
Oh, yes.
So a lot of the vineyards also do olive oil and chickpeas. It's interesting. Those are dried.
To diversify.
Yeah, diversify. And I who knew? I really did not know before I started going there that chickpeas were a big thing.
Such an
important
influential ingredient.
Yes. So speaking of chickpeas,
Yes.
that will bring us down the road to our friend Lorena in San Gemini.
Yeah, which is like the base of our operations while we're over there.
It is. It's base camp. It's the first place that I went when I stayed for over a week, and we stayed at this beautiful Villa Santa Terzi, which is up high on the hill. But San Gemini is known for lots of things.
Right. It's another beautiful walled medieval village.
It is, and it's definitely more of a community, though. You feel you go there because, well, Carsule, where the ruins are. Then they have the San Gemini water family. It's the spring water comes from there, but the family actually lives there, and that's where Santa Terzi was built.
Right. They have a porchetta oven.
Oh, Luca and his porchetta oven.
Yes,
That
restored.
is 500 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not just a tourist destination. People live and work and congregate in this town. And you can really see it by the people who gather in the morning in the piazzas for their coffee.
The gossip at the local bar in the evening.
Yes. So we're at the jousting competition for the 2-week-long medieval festival where it's very authentic. And you again have the two teams, the Rion Rocca and the Rion Piazza, and they're competing against each other. And it also has parading of the people from these areas in really authentic
dress.
Yes.
They have the. Is it the Festival of the Flags where they do the flags?
Yes. Yep.
They come into the arena.
Yep. They do a flag ceremony, and they have drum corps.
They have drum corps. Yep.
So it's
and they have a queen.
Yep.
For each team, so to speak.
Right, and they even have kind of like court jesters, so people that
they have the court
that
jesters.
lighten it up and do humorous outtakes.
And during the days and evenings, they have. So they open special restaurants for 2 weeks.
Right, just for the festival.
And they serve the pasta and the foods of the day, so to speak.
And from that time period, so from the medieval time.
Yes.
And I remember one of the things that I was really, I found really interesting was they have something called pizza.
Yes.
And so, but it's not what we think of as pizza. It's essentially like a flatbread, right? And you can get it vegetables, and they serve vegetables on the side.
So you order a pizza and you're waiting for this delicious cheesy thing, and you actually get the
piece of flatbread.
Like you said, and you get a big bowl of broccoli, or maybe something with chickpeas.
Yep.
Or
meat. I think. Yep.
But no shredded cheese.
Right. No cheese.
So you kind of roll it more like a burrito. Or something like that. So
right.
That's kind of fun. So, anyways, Lorena is a great segue into what we'll be cooking today.
Yes. She's a
Because
fabulous chef.
she's a fabulous chef. She taught me how to make pasta. I had gone to culinary school and learned to make pasta, but I really wanted to learn to make all the different types of pasta. She happens to be amazing at tortellini, tagliatelle, any pasta.
Right, gnocchi,
Spinozzi,
yeah.
gnocchi, which is potato pasta. It's all so fabulous. So she is the one who taught me how to make the farro soup.
Oh, farro.
Which is interesting because farro has been around for a very, very long time. And back in...
would you say since the Romans?
I would say since the Romans. And I would also say that it was used for commerce.
Yes.
And for money. And it didn't really become a thing. So farro is also a grain. So the Umbrians love grains. It's a grain that's been around for a very long time, but didn't start showing up on menus as something sexy or fun until the late 90s.
Right.
And what happens is the New York Times actually really likes the Umbrian region and has got to know some of the chefs. And they started a series back in 1997.
Okay.
Or 1996. And I think they go there once a year and do like a what's happening and an update. Letitia's been featured there.
Right.
Hopefully Lorena will be. Our other chef Lorenzo and Orvieto. Right. And we love Danielle and Rome.
Well, they talk a lot about the Umbrian region as, it's just kind of below the Tuscan region, but without sort of the large volume of tourists. So it's maybe, would you say a little lesser known, maybe a little more authentic, but still has
not as expensive.
Right. And still has the beauty and the amazing food and scenery. So.
Yeah. I mean,
has a lot to offer.
It's hard to decide where to go in Italy. Yeah. Right.
Well, I'm excited to check out the farro soup.
Yeah. So we're gonna make farro soup, and then I'm gonna make contucci, which is a savory biscotti. Essentially, you generally contucci is it's like a biscuit, but it typically has cheese and nuts in it. This one has gorgonzola and pine nuts. And no walnuts because I ran out of walnuts. But typically you could add walnuts or hazelnuts. No one's going to get mad at you if you change your nut.
That's good.
Pecans or almonds tend not to work as well. So I would say hazelnuts or walnuts. But we'll show you when we cook.
Can't wait.
Okay, I'm excited. Hi, we're with Steve at the Boston Public Market. Hi, Steve.
How are you today? All right.
We're good. How are you?
All right. Okay.
So we're doing a show on Umbria, but we are sourcing cheeses that are similar to Umbria or Italian spice sourced cheeses.
Sure.
Do you have anything for us here?
Well, I think the closest thing that I have, which will be nice, and I can say that's an Italian-style cheese, would be the closest thing, would be the Asiago.
Okay.
Asiago, right. And we have Classico and we have the Asiago Vintage, which has more age. It's more of an aged cheese than the Classico. But it's equally delicious. They're both equally delicious and satisfying. Those cheeses are, I consider cheeses like an Asiago is almost like a utility cheese. It's a household cheese.
Yeah.
You can use it in everything. You can use it in soups. You can use it on bread. You can use it in risotto.
Pizza.
You can use it in pizza. You can use it in pasta.
And even gnocchi.
And even in gnocchi,
yeah.
Correct. So like I said, it's a utility cheese. It's definitely a household cheese, but it's a delicious cheese. It's really good, has great, beautiful flavor.
And we're making some Umbrian lentils, so I think I might even shave a bit of it on top of the lentils when we're done.
Absolutely. That'll work. That'll be a beautiful complement to the soup.
All right, thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Welcome back. Here we are in the kitchen where we're going to make farro soup and some contucci.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, it's one of our favorites when,
right?
Yeah, contucci's delicious. But first we're going to make the farro soup, which is also delicious. What I do, I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil into this pan. There we go. Okay, so we have enough. So what I did is, and you'll see me do this on the shows, is that I mise everything out, which means stay in mise en place. It means put everything in its place so that you don't have to worry and go into your cabinet to get things.
Sounds good.
So even Megan asked me a second ago, and I already opened the tomatoes. It's just a great way to organize yourself in the kitchen. The other thing I did was you make a very rich beef broth. And you can make it on the fly if you reconstitute, the the bouillon better than bouillon. But I had some really thick, gorgeous beef broth, and then I added hot water, so we made about a quart of it.
Excellent.
Okay. Then I took, it calls for porcini mushrooms, but I could not find any porcini mushrooms in all of Norwell last night, so I got shiitake.
Oh.
I just bought dried shiitake, and then I, instead of reconstituting them with the beef broth, I did add a little hot water instead.
Okay.
Because it would be great in the beef broth, but
Yeah.
these have a really distinct flavor.
Yep.
So this liquid mixed with the beef broth is going to make it that much better.
Is it the umami that it adds?
Yes, yes. Excellent word. And I already cooked the farro as well. I did that because we're on TV time and we wanted to make sure that we could show you the dish and plate it. All right, so this carrots, onion, and celery is called a mirepoix. And what we're going to do is we're going to start our beautiful soup. We're going to turn down that flame a little bit. The one thing about these burners that we use in the field, they get hot. That's a nice sound though. We want to do that. So we're going to do, oh thanks.
Yeah.
Carrots. So I was lazy and I bought the julienne carrots. You actually want to take maybe 2 or 3 regular carrots, peel them, and then medium chunk them. But I had them last night and I don't like to waste anything. And then I diced an onion. And we're going to put that in our mix. And what we do here is we wait till the sizzle, till the onions get translucent.
Yeah.
So remember, when we were in Lorena's garden,
Right.
in San Gemini, when we were there last October, you could do this same recipe with lentils.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And both are grains that are native to Umbria, so.
Yes, and easy to find therefore. Okay, so we're going to let this get translucent. What I did with the mushrooms is I told you that I reconstituted them with hot water. I already cut some because I just thought it would be easier, but I'm going to cut one more.
Okay.
You could finely chop them if you wanted to. I'm leaving them a little bit bigger. This will be a decent portion of soup, but I feel like we have enough. They're very meaty.
Yeah, they look delicious.
Yeah, maybe cut this big guy. So Megan cooks a lot for her family. She's a great cook and friends.
Nice.
Yeah. Have you made stuff with farro?
I have not used farro a whole lot. I think I've used it a couple of times as a grain in a soup. I've definitely cooked more with lentils than farro.
Okay. So what we're going to do here is this is going to get translucent. Then I'm going to add in a bit of the beef stock.
Okay.
Okay. And the farro.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to take about a third of it and I'm going to puree it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So this is kind of a rustic soup. You leave some chunky, you puree some. The reason you puree is because you're bringing out more flavor.
Yeah.
When you take something that's hot and then you put it in a blender, you actually add more flavor, so it's going to taste richer with onion and carrot and celery.
Okay.
Mirepoix is a base, like I was saying, for a lot of things. It's a base for gumbo. It's a base for tons of soup. It's a base for chicken salad.
Yeah, I just made a bolognese sauce where you
Oh,
also
yeah.
do mirepoix.
Yum, yum, yum. All right, and so now I'm going to add a little bit of garlic.
Okay.
And I think these recipes, that they'll be available. You'll be able to hit a link or they'll put them up. You can always email us for them too. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of the pepper. And the reason that we sprinkle from on high, it's not just for TV. It's so that salt and pepper will get evenly distributed through whatever you're cooking. I love pepper, and I don't think that people use enough pepper.
Yep.
So I always grind. Fresh pepper when I can. I have a nut and spice grinder.
Excellent.
And you said you use a coffee grinder?
Right, I have one that I just keep for spices. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so now I'm going to add in half of my beef
Okay.
beef bouillon here. Beef stock.
Okay.
Okay, and you can hear that cools it right down because it's not hot anymore, which is fine. It'll come to boil in a minute. It's really pretty in there. I'm assuming you can see what I'm doing. So you can see that gorgeous broth.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to add the farro.
Okay.
Okay. I cooked that, as I said before. So
Right.
it's 3 cups, but it really seems to multiply. I feel like there's a lot more. There's water in there, but that's okay because it will absorb. The thing is, you want it al dente. So you do not want this to get really soft and mushy for your first service.
When you're
you know,
putting
it
it
will
into
get
the-
softer as you reheat it for other guests and whatnot, but you don't want it to be super mushy. All right, so there we have that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to suggest that we we'll go through. We have to blend a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Then we have to come back and add the rest of the ingredients. And while that simmers for a little bit, we'll go on and tell them how to make contucci.
Great. Sounds
Okay.
good.
So we will take a quick break and then we will come back to blend.
Excellent.
All right. So here we are with our gorgeous soup. And just as I had mentioned before, we're going to take about a third of it
Okay.
and blend it.
Okay.
So what you want to do is you want to just get a big spoon.
Okay.
Okay. And I really love the immersion blender.
Yes.
Because I don't love transferring hot liquids.
Yeah.
But when you're just doing a portion of it, you need to. So I just
Okay.
bring it right here.
And is it mostly just the solids and not the liquid, or do you have a little bit of broth in there as well?
Well, I have a little bit, but what I'm going to do,
Uh-huh.
because otherwise it just won't make sense, is I'm going to
Okay.
put a little bit of this in.
Oh, there you go. Now you want to make sure the lid's on tight.
You do, well, yes. And the other thing you want to do, especially if kids are making it, or when you're using a hot liquid,
Oh,
you
yeah.
always put a towel
Okay.
over it, okay?
Yep.
Or else you will blast your hand with heat and it will really hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing is worse in a kitchen than a steam burn. And I have tons of burns. I have lots of marks all over my arms from hitting the grates in the oven. That kind of just burns. You get a little brand, you're off to the races. But if you get a steam burn, it is life-changing. It is so
Painful,
tough and
yeah.
painful. The other thing is, kids, people, anybody, always remember that when you take a lid off a very hot liquid or you're making soup, step away from it. It can singe your eyes, but also, again, it's that steam and it comes right up in your face.
Oh, yeah.
Brutal. Okay, so I'm just going to put my hand on this so we don't have a big issue, and I'm going to puree it. Okay, that's how I go. It kind
Okay.
of looks like oatmeal once you're done. You don't want it all done.
Oh, okay. You
All
don't want
you're
it completely
doing,
pureed, yeah.
And can you smell?
Yeah,
You
it
really
smells
smell the
delicious.
grains
Right.
in that, right? Okay, so we are just going to put this right back
Okay.
into our soup. But you see it does change the consistency.
Right.
And it makes it a little bit more...
Yeah, it
you know,
almost gives it a little bit more of a creamier texture look.
Yes. And funny enough, well, no, we don't add cream into this. But it does... Whenever you puree something, it can make it... You wouldn't be able to really puree this super fine. I mean, I guess you could, but you wouldn't. You would just
Yeah.
kind of do it chunky. Okay, I'm going to hide this under here because we don't need it up
Right.
front blocking our view. All right, so now I'm going to add our beautiful mushrooms.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe I should have cut them up more so more people would get them.
Oh,
But.
it looks lovely.
All right, and then the magic. We already opened our tomato sauce.
Okay, it's sauce.
No, I'm sorry. This is crushed tomatoes.
Crushed tomatoes,
It's
okay.
not tomato. So again, that's a good. I'm glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
you know the Italians love their tomatoes.
Right.
We talk about this a lot. There's stewed tomatoes. There's diced tomatoes. There's crushed tomatoes. There's whole tomatoes.
Yeah.
There's tomato sauce. So what I always do, I typically make tomato sauce or crushed tomatoes, but canned Italian tomatoes are your best bet. They are fabulous. The Italians really know what they're doing. And like us, out of season, if you can't get it in season, the best thing to do is to get a canned tomato. You don't get frozen tomatoes. Other frozen veggies are good. All right, so I always put the whole can in. I probably put in a half a cup extra than the recipe calls
Okay.
for. But remember that when you're making a soup or a sauce, it's going to reduce some with the liquid. And because you want this hearty, yummy soup, and you can see how pretty this is, we are just going to leave it on the stove for a little while we talk about our contucci.
Sounds good.
But I'm just going to put in the rest of this broth.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. And there's just kind of the ends you can see of the broth, and that just means it was really thick and yummy. It's going to have a lot of flavor. Okay. If you're vegetarian, just use vegetable broth. You don't have to worry about it. If you don't have beef broth and you're totally out, use chicken broth or vegetable broth. The reason you use beef broth is because you're giving it tons and tons of flavor with the beef, and that's the palate you're trying to create. But it doesn't matter if you're a vegetarian. The other thing is the Italians might throw some meat in here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So they would reduce it a bit, and if they were just having a lunch and maybe not going to have a couple courses, which is rare, then they would just maybe throw some sausage or, that yummy, the veal or something else. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to let this simmer for a little bit, and while that simmers, we're going to show you how to make contucci. Welcome back. As you can see, we've switched things up a little bit.
Right.
We have our beautiful soup simmering, and we're going to show you how to make contucci. Now, again, sometimes we can do these recipes in full and show you exactly what to do, but this is a little bit of a messier recipe and takes some time. It's only messy in that you have to make the dough come together. It's really very easy, although when you're making it, people think it won't come together. But I'll tell you what to do, okay? So for contucci, which is a savory, I call it a savory biscotti. It's a great way to explain what it should look like, okay, and the way you cut it. All right, so the other thing you use in contucci, which you don't use in biscotti, is yeast.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so in here I have taken 2 cups of flour, and I have shaved some nutmeg into it.
Okay.
Okay. If you can use all-purpose, if you can get 00, which you can at most markets these days, use 00 because it'll be authentic. It makes the dough a little silkier.
Okay.
Okay. And then you use 3/4 of a teaspoon of yeast, and you put that together.
Okay.
I usually just whisk that together. Okay. Then you use a really good gorgonzola. I happen to buy these gorgonzola crumbles because I was making a couple batches of it, and it makes it easy. I also like it to disperse nicely through the dough so that it's really cheesy. So the crumbles are good for that.
Okay.
Okay. Then we don't need this parsley. I'm going to move that over to the side. Excuse me. You need Parmesan cheese. Okay. You need butter, which I just cut up into cubes because it makes it easier, and now this is room temperature, so it's going to get into your dough really nicely and make a really creamy dough, so to speak. Eggs. So you take 2 eggs as well for the recipe, and I always separate my eggs. You want to add them one at a time. You're going to add, mix, but you should always crack your eggs separately anyways, or crack them into a bowl and then move them over because you want the integrity of the egg to be okay.
Oh, okay.
The reason behind that is if you were doing an event and you were doing 40 eggs, or you were doing 100 eggs, or 1,000 eggs, if you get to 999 and you put a bad egg in the 998, the head chef will make you throw out the whole batch. So you don't want to ever make anyone sick. So that's just a tip we do. And then pine nuts. So I roasted these pine nuts.
Okay.
I think I mentioned when we were talking over on the couch that I didn't have any walnuts. But walnuts are really yummy. And if you take the walnuts and pine nuts and roast them together, that'll be great. Or you can use hazelnuts. It's not going to ruin the recipe.
Great.
Okay, so what you do is you take your flour mixture and your yeast, and you make a volcano. Okay, and in the center of your volcano, you add your cheese, your 2 cheeses. Okay, so your Parmesan and your blue. You add your butter. I kind of sprinkle it throughout. All right. You add your nuts, and you kind of bring that together.
Yeah.
And then what I do is that I make another little circle. It'll still be. You'll still be able to do that. Okay, and then you make room for your eggs.
Okay.
And I take one at a time and just put it in.
Right.
You need a bench scraper. So the bench scraper is an amazing kitchen tool. It cleans your kitchen counters. Kids love it. But it also is when you're working with dough, you can scoop it up. The other thing that I would do when you're making this dough, and it is pretty easy, you just have to be patient for having it come together. So when all the little scraps come off the side and you think it's never going to turn into dough,
Turns into dough.
it turns into dough. You just have to have a little bit of patience. And the dough ends up looking like, hold on one second. I just wrap this in cellophane. And you could do this too if you wanted to make a couple batches and just keep it in your fridge for a day or two. Not tons.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to show you about this dough is it's really nice and it's a gorgeous color. It feels nice. It's not super sticky. And when you cut it, you can see where the yeast is working. So it kind of looks like bread or a baguette. And you can see the nuts and the cheese.
The different ingredients.
Yeah.
Right.
So then what we do is we typically just take this and put it on a
tray.
On a tray. You don't have, I use parchment a lot, but with this you don't have to. It's not going to stick.
Yeah.
And I don't normally cut it right now. You usually put it on as a log or a baguette.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And we're going to put this in the oven at 350 for 20 minutes. Then we bring it out.
Yeah.
And we take, we let it just cool for a minute or two. You actually cut it warm.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you can cut it on the dais at an angle.
Yep.
And then when you do that,
You put it back in the oven to
you
bake.
put it back in the oven to bake for another 10 minutes.
And then your finished project.
And then your finished product are these beautiful contucci. And what I want to show you here is that this is like the cheese that's against the pan.
Right.
And so it crisps up and it's just absolutely delicious. And then on the other side, you can kind of see the marbling where the yeast took effect in the nuts. You can tell I like this, right? It's really delicious. There's nothing better than burnt cheese. It's not burnt, but you know, the lovely cheese on your
Seared cheese.
on your seared cheese.
Yes.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll just take a quick break and then we'll plate our farro soup and then we'll be almost done. Thank
Great.
you. So welcome back.
Welcome back.
We're happy to be back with our beautiful soup. And what I'm going to do, this is really easy to plate. It's just what I would also do is I would probably get a nice crunchy ciabatta, warm it with a little butter and garlic, maybe some cheese. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
And I do just a beautiful crisp green salad. You don't need much because this is actually very filling.
Yeah, really hearty.
All right, yeah, really hearty. So again, I love my white bowls, and if we have any mess, we're just gonna I have a cloth. Okay, you would never serve it like that with a little spill. So I'm gonna just get some of the meat of the soup, and then some of the liquid. And then what you could do as well, if you wanted to, you could reserve your pureed farro.
Oh, okay.
And put a dollop of that on top.
Oh,
because
nice.
what will happen there is if you're waiting with your farro on the side, it will it will expand.
Okay.
So the starch will expand. So it will get a little sturdier to stand up to your soup. Okay. So that's what I would do. And I would just serve it like that. And as you can see, that's a portion, a big portion.
Yeah.
So you just have to decide how much of this delicious soup you want to eat.
Right, right. Thanks so much for joining us on this trip to Umbria.
We can't wait to go back and take you with us. And remember, we always have more room at our table. Thanks so much for joining us.